This is Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Slecker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, educated educators talking education.
There it is, Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. 855-752-4842. That's the number. Very quickly, if you want to call. It is Wednesday night. Educators Amplified in the house. Teacher Joanna, though. No Teacher Hallie tonight. Teacher Joanna and anybody else watching on the Facebook, the Twitter X, the YouTube. You're like, Johnny's not there either. Yeah, Teacher Hallie, Teacher Johnny right now.
We've only had one of you for like 5 episodes in a row.
It's been, it's the way it's summer. It's the end of summer, and it's getting close to back to school. And so we'll be talking a lot about that. But yes, Teacher Joanna's in the house. Me, Jess, we're all here. That's all we ever need. I mean, come on, people. You can jump in. Put in the comments. We said there are so many ways to participate in the show. Easily, though, give us a call, jump on. Hey, you're like, I can't talk to people on the radio. You don't have to talk to people on the radio. You're talking to Teacher Joanna and Tim and Jess. Come on, right, Joanna?
Yeah, I mean, Tim, this is just reminding me of old times. Like, how long ago did we start this whole connection? And it did used to be just, it would be you conducting one interview. And so, right, we'll just feel nostalgic today.
Yeah.
And I do, I don't know if on your iPhone you get the memories that pop up.
Yes.
I got a memory that popped up today that was of the thunder snowstorm.
Yes.
Where we were rallying for the budget back in 2019.
I remember that.
Right. And you were, so right. This will just be another time where it's you and I doing our thing.
Doing our thing. The other thing we're always doing too, Busted Pencils is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company. They sued the state of Wisconsin to end its really crappy voucher system that hurts public schools. Minocqua Brewing Company is making Wisconsin great again, one beer at a time. Check out MinocquaBrewingCompany.com to see where you can buy their progressive beer. People out there listening to that going, whoa, what was that? Hey, just think about it. If you're out there and you're saying, I'd like to have my business or what I do read on the radio like that, hey, guess what? You too could be a sponsor of Busted Pencils. We got no problems. We love that. We would love to do more ads talking about that. And then the other thing too, anybody else, we said, you're watching on the YouTube, you're watching on the Facebook, you're watching on the Twitter X. You're also potentially listening on the Civic Media app. We remind people every night, make sure you have that, download that to your phone, because as Jess always reminds us, the sound quality, Jess, right?
Absolutely. However, right now, if you are in the Madison area, please switch to listening on WAUK. The Madison line is currently down. We just got a message about that.
So if they're in the app and they're trying to listen through the WMDX link,
right, it's not going to come through.
It's not going to come through. So there you go. You can use the WAUK, the walk link, and that way you can tune in to hear, Educators Amplified, Teacher Joanna in the house. Well, Teacher Joanna, it's been a week now. And wait a minute. Good evening, my teacher friends from Sherry and Horicon. Got to put that out there. Good evening, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
We love it when she lets us know that she's out there, and she's not late tonight. We appreciate that, especially. So, all right. How about just a quick check-in, Teacher Joanna? We've been having lots of conversations, the politics that are going on, lots of politics. In fact, last night, election night in Wisconsin, pretty big, a ballot constitutional amendment initiative came and was defeated. And this, when I first read that, it was like, oh, defeated. Defeated typically gets pointed out as a bad thing.
Right.
On this was like, no, this was a good thing. What do you know about defeating these two ballot initiatives?
Well, I know there was a really strong get the vote out effort regarding the referendum. And I think that people are really, I think the Project 2025 stuff has like perked people up in terms of paying more close attention to what is coming forth on ballots. And
Mm,
so I think it was rejected pretty
right,
handily,
right.
and I guess, the majority of folks just don't wanna see powers of our governor limited.
Yeah, I mean, this was essentially saying, like, look, the governor, if you get money from the feds, we don't want you to have any ability to disperse those monies. We in the legislature would like to have that responsibility.
Yes,
And
our
it's like,
super active legislature that does so much more than gavel in and gavel out.
Mhm.
there we go, Jess. So it's like, no, 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 no. Sorry, we're going to keep that power right exactly where it is and keep it there, you know, and then coming forward. So that was kind of like the big highlights last night. Coming up, though, Teacher Joanna, next week in Chicago, the Democratic National Convention starts on Monday. And here's the other thing: civic media will be bringing you top notch coverage. Tune into your favorite station for hosts on the ground in Chicago and coverage for each night's keynote speakers. And I got to say, I am looking forward to hearing from Tim Waltz. We
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta look back. It's like, man, we were just so happy last week, and I was wondering if Teacher Joanna, you're still feeling that kind of like, this is truly a real unique kinda like, this is the real deal of a teacher.
It is, and there was an article or some information that came out that made me really see it when they were talking about net worth, and it
Yeah.
was saying that, like, Tim Walz's net worth is, like, $300,000 or something like that, and that, his biggest whatever is a heavily mortgaged Cape Cod home,
Okay.
that they sold, and that was just really related fun. That was like real deal. It's like him and his wife are educators, so yep,
Yeah.
here's where they're at,
Right.
and then it was just very relatable about, like, yeah, I feel like this is more where Americans are at versus where many of our politicians are right now. I think the other candidate has millions,
Right.
millions in the bank, millions in assets. And so that part just felt more relatable. And then the other part, though, is some of the attacks um, are just, like they're also, I guess, sadly relatable, where I'm like, we're so used to the teacher attacks. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, they're going to say this. And oh, yeah, they're going to say that. Um, but feeling still really good that his stuff is not, again, it's like us teachers where it's like it's not partisan. It
No.
is just like, here's good policy.
Right.
Here's good policy for students. Here's good policy for families. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, no, I'm still feeling excited.
I'm feeling excited. I'm still loving it. And I read a really great blog that kind of did the analysis of Tim Waltz from the standpoint of saying, like, looking at and saying, what does he support? Because in the past, we talked about this, particularly, you know, um, Democrats and Republicans have disappointed educators alike for a
Mm.
long, long time. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
so the reality was going, okay, so what does Tim Waltz? Is this going to be another Democrat that, quote, supports public education? And it was like, no, they did a full contrast of going like, here's Tim Waltz's position on, high stakes testing. And guess what? Nothing there. It just kind of like makes the idea of saying, like, whatever kids need to do to show us that they know what they know, we need to accept that. So not coming in with this kind of reform movement of putting this forward, and continue to say like his accomplishments as an educator. The best way to to kind of say, it's like, okay, he's been a coach, he's been a mentor, he's been there, But that whole idea, though, too, of bringing in universal breakfast and lunch for
Mhm.
all kids. I mean, that's the best illustration of going, that's what this dude is about.
Well, and it's just like and what I was saying, it's just good policy.
Yeah.
Like, we should meet the full range of students' needs while they're in our care. And so that's just an example of good policy. Something else that I was made aware of was his stance on vouchers. So I was reading this article where it said that, like, right, Democrats and his legislator were like, well, we should at least give the Republicans a bone on this voucher thing. So maybe we can make it this way and that way. And one that was just really illuminating to me
Mhm.
because I have suspected that that is what may have occurred in the state, here in Wisconsin.
There you go.
And that, right, Tim Walz was like, no, there's no,
Yeah.
we don't play with this. We
Right.
just need more funding for our public schools.
Yeah, and he just draws out that kind of a saying, like, look, and particularly where he grew up and where he taught, rural Minnesota, guess what? Vouchers, there's no choice. The
Right.
choice is whether or not to fund fully the local public schools that are the foundation, the bedrock of democracy, the cornerstones of the communities, or send your money elsewhere. And sorry, that's no choice. So the idea of vouchers, no, 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 no. That is code for defunding local public schools.
Right. And then being able to take such a clear stance, just understanding that we are in no position to negotiate away anything
Right.
because we don't have, it's like there's nothing, there's not enough as it is. And so that was just, it's something that, again, is very relatable and that I can understand and understand how it really helps.
Mm. Loving the help. It's Busted Pencils fully leaded education talk, educated educators talking education. Wednesday night, educators amplified in the house. Teacher Joanna. The number is 855-752-4842. Hey, anything right now if you want to talk about it, but check this out. Teacher Joanna, it really is back to school. I got to hear what Teacher Joanna's got to say. More coming up. Busted Pencils fully leaded education talk, educated educators talking education. It's Educators Amplified Wednesday night in the house. Teacher Joanna with us. It's Jess and Tim. Yeah, Johnny and Teacher Hallie. They got other responsibilities. The number's 855-752-4842. You want to give us a call, jump in, talk about it. But Teacher Joanna, it is officially back to school, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Yes, it is. I've been back in, but
right.
my official day is Friday.
What what does back to school? So this Friday is your official first day. Okay.
Yes.
What does the official first day of back to school look like for Teacher Joanna?
Well, mine is a little bit different than it used to be. So
Okay.
my official back to school will be a day-long department meeting,
Mm, mm.
where we will go over all of our goals for the year and
Uh,
all of our kind of assignments. And yeah, it'll be a day-long meeting.
Is this empowering to have an entire day devoted to goals or
Well, I can't really say. I mean,
right.
yes and no, because it is the whole like it's going to be dictated to me. So it is
Yes.
going to be like, here's the game plan. And so, but when I think about when I was a class, like fully like had my own class, because now it's like I oversee several classes.
Right.
And when it was like just like singularly me, it was very different. It was just kind of like a little bit of pomp and circumstance, and um kind of like review of like PowerPoints that the superintendent had put together before for the school board, and they like replay it back to you as like, and here's what we're doing and here's what's important. um it's usually meetings. I've had years though where they've switched it and they've let you come in your first day and have just work time
Mm.
and setting up your classroom. That was always my favorite,
Right.
because otherwise you really are sitting through these meetings thinking about everything. I would just bring my notebook and make my list of all the
Right.
things that I needed to do. But that was rare. That is rare if you get to go in, or maybe not. Callers could let us know. But I remember it was just a few times that it was like, we got work time first. And I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in fact, back to school right now, listeners out there, call us with your best back to school encounter, particularly if you're a teacher too, bringing this and worst back to school. I could say the same thing, teacher Joanna. I remember a couple back to school 2 days of what they called professional development,
Yeah.
which were 2 days of the school district, either under the superintendent and the principals, put together. They called it professional development, but yeah, as you said there, I sat along with all of my other teacher colleagues, and we mostly sat through those professional developments with a, "Oh my God, why are we sitting here
Mm-hmm.
now, sitting through these people?" First of all, most of them typically are people who are paid way too much money to come in and tell us things we already know.
Mm-hmm.
Not very inspiring, not very uplifting, but it kinda like you're going, "Wait, you paid these people to come in here and talk to us all day long when I could be setting up my classroom?" And feeling that. So it makes me think about this as we're going back to school again. What are those memories that people have about that? Particularly, we're sitting there. Cam from Appleton texted in, "I remember I almost lost computer privileges for the whole year because I hacked the printers in the school to display a message that said, 'Feed me, babies.'"
I was going to
Not
say
quite
the
back to school, but oh goodness,
right.
Cam. So
Well,
you've been on this since 7th grade, huh?
hey, what would we do without our smartphones to text our friends? That has been a helpful that's been a helpful technology in terms of surviving, because there really is a template. It really is kind of like song and dance PowerPoint of like district goals, and then like you said, Tim, then they bring in some keynote. There
Mhm.
might be a couple really bad YouTube videos too that you have to watch that are supposed to be like inspirational, motivational, mega sports references. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
something that was always like, where it's like
Yeah.
really my history has been that, right, a lot of like really like masculine
I was
type
gonna
of like,
say,
and we're gonna go out and kill it this school
male
year.
macho-ness. We're taking everything and we're breaking stuff and we're taking names. We're gonna kick. You're like, wait, what is all this anger and male hostility about? Really? This is about test scores?
Well, I was gonna say, and then you can get it another way, because I've gotten the whole like the school year started out with shaming, where it
Mm.
was like, here is what everybody did last year, and these scores stink, and this attendance is horrible. And those are really hard when you start the school year with like talking to like that. Oh man. So yeah, we've seen all the different flavors, and people like our listener in a way. It might seem a little naughty, but I understand.
Cam, no, keep sending them. Cam types back in, hey, if you don't want them, I can stop sending them. No, Cam, we love the participation. Yeah, Teacher Joanna, though, that's the other one too. It's kind of like that. So I would say, and again, teachers out there, Cam's participating through the text. You can call us 855-752-4842. That back to school PD, what did that mean? Was it this, again, overpaid person who's talking at you when you would much rather be doing what you should be doing to get your classroom ready? Or is it, a bunch of male masculine kind of like, we're going to tear this school year down, darn it? Or Teacher Joanna, I'd say the other one of going like, okay, you teachers, here's the disaster you did last year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're not going to have that kind of year this year because and you're sitting there going, it's like, wait, what is the point of this? Is this to empower? Is this really back to school? Welcome back to school. Think about that, as we're coming into what would it mean? And the other part, if you want to participate from the standpoint of saying, though, what would a great back to school PD look like? What would it be if you could design it? I have lots and lots of ideas about things we could be doing for sure. Yeah, and maybe some of that would be hacking in. I always like the idea of the potential, getting into the superintendent's PowerPoint before they put it up there, and kind of hijacking one of their slides with something like that. That'd be a little bit funny to see that.
Well, a question I always ask about this and many things is, what would it look like if we were truly centering educators? If we were getting, PD, if we were having, when we gather with the the framing of what would it look like if educators and educator needs were centered, I think it'd look and feel very different.
We're going to leave it right there. There's the question. Call us with that. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk, educated educators talking education, 855-752-4842. It's Wednesday. Educators Amplified in the house. Teacher Joanna and Jess and Tim. It's just the three of us tonight. We said Teacher Hallie and Johnny, they got things to do, and hey, we can get that. I don't know, maybe they're getting ready back to school stuff, but that's the topic tonight. Talking about back to school. Teacher Joanna, kind of given this from the standpoint of what does back to school mean for you, the teacher, the educator? What does that, we did some talking a lot about going, it's mostly, in my experience, it's either been, a professional development with a paid speaker that I really don't need to hear from because I am a professional teacher. And the fact is that, or actually we said three, or there's, this kind of rah, let's go get them team. Or there's the, oh my, you guys were so bad last year and we're going to start this year and let you know how bad you were. So painful, Joanna.
It is. Well, and the divide, as you were saying all that, I think about the divide between going back to school that's like the first hurdle. So you think about, like, you're kind of like, everyone's kind of bummed, right, that their time is coming to an end. And then you think like, oh, and my first hurdle is I kind of got to get through that stuff in order to get to my kids. I think we'd feel different if we had time to work and got right to our kids, because that is the thing. Like, everyone will say, they'll be like, not really crazy about the meetings, but I'm excited. That is what I'm starting to hear my friends saying, like, oh, I put this together. I'm looking forward to seeing my kids. I'm looking forward to having time and setting up my class. And so you kind of live between those two worlds. But darn it, it's kind of like those emails, those meetings, and the rah-rah, whatever, is like your first hurdle to get
Oh,
to the good stuff.
and the fact that you framed that as a hurdle says
Mm,
a lot. I mean, thinking about that, right? I've been in this education business or endeavor or adventure for over 30 years. Guess what? My first year, I said exactly what you just said, and all the way to this point, you go. So it's not like this isn't known that, look, if you really, really, really wanted to tap into the educators, the teachers, the support staff, and get them really fired up for back to school, you would think 30 years of evidence of bad PD, shaming, or rah-rahing, you would say, when is it going to finally go away? And let's have a back to school about what it means to truly welcome back our children, our students, the families. What would that look like?
mhm. Well, sorry, I mean, I can talk about that, but first I want to say that it's just really reflective to me again of the system is oriented towards more the needs or the desires of the administrators and the
Mm,
people who hold power. Because if we were talking about what you're talking about, it would look different. If we were like our core work is making sure that educators are in a place to do the best possible job that they can this year, it wouldn't look like that.
mm,
It would look like, yep, we're gonna, I don't know, again, give you time, have you process, ask you what your needs are, offer assistance for what your needs are, and all of that. Now, educators are incredible little beings because they work around all of this, to still pull it off. So the students and families really have no idea, kind of like the workarounds that the teachers would do. And I know for myself, some of the things that I would do to start off a school year so that I felt really good and so that it was really welcoming and inclusive to my students was, first, I would attempt to have, well, not attempt because I did it. I would have some kind of meaningful connection with the families in advance of everything. And
mm.
so I'll start calling around this time or even earlier. I'd call a couple families a day and just introduce myself and kind of remind them about when something, like when registration is and things like that, and say, I just wanted to call and say I'm excited about the school year, anything in particular going on, and offer to meet in advance. Now, again, this is outside of the contract often. And so, but it's that kind of pre-work that would really having some kind of meaningful connection in advance of things happening was really helpful to me in terms of how I was going, knowing what I was heading into and how I would design my groups, my spaces, my places, and things like that.
Mm. What what was that? What was that, Jess?
You're
That's the
always so
bell.
surprised. Tim, we
I
do this
know it.
every day.
Democracy in action. What do we got, Jess?
For today, our democracy in action, the core democratic value that we are highlighting is patriotism, having a devotion to our country and the core democratic values. This goes out to teachers for all of the preparatory work that goes into making a space ready for building a democratic classroom. As teacher Joanna is saying, this is almost exclusively work that teachers aren't paid for. This is work
Mm-mm.
that teachers do out of love and devotion to this country, to their students, and to the work that they do. That is today's democracy in action.
I love that, man. Teacher Joanna, I see those eyes lighting up on that. Man, Jess really delivered on that one.
Well, it's a great reminder of service, that we work in service.
You work in service, and you talked about this, and sadly, yeah, these are things that, quote, you're not getting paid for, you're not doing this. And you say, taking a systemed look at this and say, why are we not doing what we know is important? As you just said, the idea of individually reaching out to families and students to say, hey, you're coming back to school. I'm going to be your teacher this year. Looking forward to meeting you. Here are some things that you might want to do. I mean, that whole idea of welcoming, recognizing that and saying, this is what it means to truly set up a classroom. When we say inclusive, you know, that we're not talking about special education inclusion here. We're saying right off the bat, inclusive. In other words, as the student, as the family comes to school that day, they feel like they're part of the classroom.
Yeah, and what I was talking about too with this individual reach out is very different than how things are currently organized, right? Because most schools have an open house night, which is
Mhm.
actually really chaotic. When you have your 30 students coming to bring all of their supplies in one night. So that's a good example of something to like rethink and be like, did you really feel like you made a connection that night? You know what I mean? Was it really soothing? Because it's actually way more chaotic than what the experience is probably really going to be like for the student. That's just one example. Like I said, I would have always preferred to be, and because teachers are usually paid, or it's work, it's considered like a half day of work or something. It's in their calendar normally to do an open house night. And I would much rather take those hours to be able to do individual contacts. I mean, and now you could virtually meet your students, right? You could
Right.
be like, hey, we're going to meet online really quick to be able to be like, hi, and I could show even the background and, everything. So that's an example to me of like concept. We could do it better now because I do think that students really benefit from having a really clear picture of what day one is going to look like. They're nervous. And
Mm.
so when you have a clear picture, that anticipatory set, I talk about that a lot, right? In education, when you know what to anticipate, we have clear space, clear place, what's going to happen. That's just so worth it. And then when those kiddies come, there are really important things to do that I prepare for. Like this time of year, I'm thinking about and helping other teachers think about like, what are we going to do to build community day one?
Mm.
Are we going to go right into determining like shared values and classroom expectations together? And Thinking of the little kind of like icebreaker activities to do and determining again, the spaces and places. I put a lot of time into like making sure that things are clear for the students.
Mm.
So when I was younger, I used to think like, oh yeah, hey, I'm a high school teacher and I want to be cool. Maybe the kids could like sit wherever they want. Over the years, I found that that's really not good. Like people want to, they're nervous coming
Yeah.
in, and it really helps to just know, like, oh, there's a label with my chair. Okay, I know exactly where to go.
Right.
And so I think having that set up for kids right away is something that like
Take
alleviates
that
anxiety.
stress level. Yeah, that anxiety.
Mhm.
I was thinking about that. It's just like the last thing you're nervous, you're coming in, you're meeting your teacher, and I said a lot of my experience was with 5th graders, and it was great, because in an elementary school, they were going to be the top dogs that year, they're the big 5th graders. But to see, as you said, they'd come in, back to school night is the way what we talked about it. They'd be coming in with their parents, and had that look of like, oh my God, I heard about Mr. Slecker. I saw him when we were in 4th grade. Now I'm really in his class, and you
Big
sit
old
there and go,
scary Mr. Slecker.
he's so geez, man, he's more mean than we thought he. No, but setting up that kind of flow to come in and say, it's like, and I say like, hey Jacob, check it out. There's your seat back there. Go back, take your parents back there, show them some of the things we have. Get that, as you say, it's comforting to go like, but to let them have. Yeah, you thought about that, going like giving them the ability to choose. Sometimes direction really makes a difference in really reducing the anxiety. The other point here, and I see Jess is putting this in there, what about the physical space, classroom design? What do you think about there, Teacher Joanna?
Well, classroom design, again, that's part of like the preparation. Like, is this going to be Is it gonna flow? Is it not messy? I'm one of like that, if it's like cluttered and, you know, squeezed in, that sets a tone. So you spend a lot of time kind of clearing out, cleaning up. I like to have really dedicated, and most teachers do, like stations
Yeah.
where the kids knows like this is where we track attendance. This is where we keep lunch. This is where you can always get up and get any supplies. So it's really important to have that stuff ready to go, clearly marked, and you be on the ready with what directions you're going to provide on
Mm.
how to use those spaces. I also think though things like I'm very big into music,
Mm.
and making sure, oh man, I love having a great Bluetooth speaker,
Yeah.
because I like to set the environment with music.
Right.
Sometimes scent, that's gone back and forth over the years.
Mm.
Yeah, I like to use like music, scent, and then definitely artwork. I don't
Mm.
know. And I usually make changes based on what students the year before have talked about. Like, or,
Okay.
when I sit back and reflect, like what worked well, what
Right.
didn't work well.
It's always putting those things together like that. You just think it's like, yeah, this really worked well. This worked only partially, but you know what? I still think it's a good idea. Students seem to like it, but we can make rearrangements, revisions. It's always that. Yeah, it's back to school. It's busted pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. It's Wednesday night. It's Educators Amplified in the house. Teacher Joanna here. 855-752-4842. It is. Yeah, it's truly back to school. What does it mean for teachers back to school? What does it mean for students? Families, if you're out there and you're sitting there going, I didn't even know all of this happens. Hey, we'd love to hear from you. What have been your experiences? What are those best back to school nights that you remember as a parent when you brought your child into? Hey, and even you could share with us some of the ones you didn't like. The number's 855-752-4842. It's Busted Pencils. Man, give us a call in a minute.
Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it. She loves to dance, she loves to sing, she does everything.
Dancing and singing. Yes, that's what we always love to do on Busted Pencils. Fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. Wednesday night, Educators Amplified. Teacher Joanna in the house. Tim, Jess, Johnny, and Hallie. Hey, they had things to do, getting ready for back to school. It's been all over back to school. What does it mean from bad PD, good PD, getting that classroom set up and ready to go? And now kind of coming into this and say, Joanna, I'm going to phrase this very simply. What if I was setting up my classroom to be a democratic classroom? What it would look like? I think about that and go back to when I started, the whole idea of democracy and community, that really wasn't the thing that we were doing. It was, you know what? Here are the rules in Mr. Slecker's classroom. Here and in that sense, I was presenting the dictatorship.
Right.
What it meant
Autocratic.
autocratic. It was like, here are the rules. And in fact, when you break this rule, here's what's going to be consequence one. You break that rule again, here's consequence two. You break that rule again, here's the letter your parents are going to be getting from me. And to think about that and go, man, was that necessary? Because boy, that really didn't create a sense of inclusion, as we were talking about inclusiveness, community. And I think about that, too, is it's like public education as being the bedrock of democracy. Boy, were we modeling though rule following? And man, sometimes rule following isn't necessarily democracy, especially if you don't have any say. I think about
Mm.
maybe that is. And so as you're bringing in the students, how do they get to see themselves back to school as being a contributing participant member in the classroom this year and kind of flipping that?
Well, thankfully, I've been able to combine my experience with youth and what I've observed with systems now that are more informed by neuroscience and
Mm,
what really works. So those when you and I started back in the early 90s,
mhm,
um these autocratic measures, I mean, that is what we were told, but they were uninformed because the information wasn't available then about we were just using fear to get kids
mhm,
to comply. And so now we have more information available and practices, like I said, through experience, tried and true, and well researched, that we really can, we have more, we are more effective when kids consent. And
mm.
so setting up a democratic classroom is finding out what will how can you get kids consent rather than how do you um,
Mandate
exert,
compliance.
yeah, exert control.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think I had mentioned earlier, some of that really is just you can hold what's called a value circle with students where you really sit down and say, how do we want life to be in here? And
Mm,
so, what does that mean? I mean, and me in particular, I work with high school students, so this is very reasonable. But I have friends who are elementary teachers who do the same things,
mhm,
right? And so I think having like a value circle and determining together what are we going to live by in here and being explicit about what that means. I
right.
think that's really inviting. um I and then that leads into what's called shared agreements. So
Mm,
based on the values and things that the kids think are important, you come up with some shared agreements. An example could be like, people would say students always do value like safety in terms
mhm,
of like they want to feel safe.
right.
So that could then turn into a shared agreement that we will always use language that is kind instead
Mhm,
of and because kids nowadays too, they really recognize threat is not necessarily just external. they
mm,
they're very aware of like psychological safety and how language can be threatening or proximity can feel threatening, and things like that. So I think about identifying your your shared values and then creating shared agreements from that.
yeah, and I think about it too now, there are some things where we help them. They say back from back to truly a democracy. Guess what? There are some rules that we all have to follow, and that there are rules. But how do we, as a group or a community, a classroom is a community? I
Yes.
like the way you said that. How do we come up with our shared values that we're all going to be contributing to and also participating in dialogue when maybe, this is the other thing. Do students, how do they know that they're allowed to question
Mhm.
policies and procedures? Do they have a voice in saying, I'm not sure this is working for me? Or the other students in the class, we got together and we thought, Teacher Joanna, maybe we could do it this way, and instead. Thinking about those things, and you say, setting that up for in a classroom so that students know that they have the ability to voice concerns and potentially not ever have those concerns. It may not be answered in the way they want, but the reality is that they have and feel that they have the ability to say that their voice does matter.
Well, I think a step further from shared agreements then, and this happens, is that you do have a community agreement then about how you will address problems when they come up. And you have like a system for doing that. Like that
Mm.
it's very clear to everybody, like this is how we address problems and this is how we work through them. And I think I might have talked about it before. I use balance in the process a lot, which is a four-part thing where it's like you always start by getting acquainted, then you have some questions that build understanding, then you address real issues, and then you develop a plan. And so the kids know that that's the cycle, that's the sequence that we'll use. So yeah, I think that is newer, this whole like
Yeah.
sharing power with students, because right, how you and I came up, that was not
Yeah.
a thing.
There was no power sharing at all. Oh, Busted Pencils, Educators Amplified in the house. Man, too. Busted Pencils. Thanks, Minocqua Brewing Company, for sponsoring Busted Pencils. They are making Wisconsin great again, one beer at a time. Teacher Joanna, man, thank you so much for busting pencils tonight.